By the end of this video, the plan is to be able to take this scooter for its MOT and for it to pass. I'm Stephen from AutoNight, a very warm welcome to another video. Now, the more observant of you may have noticed in my last video that I made an error, and somehow I managed to fit an inline fuel filter to the actual vacuum line to the fuel tap as opposed to the fuel line. I don't know what I was thinking. Looking at it now, I just cannot understand how that happened, but it did, but it's now fixed as of now, as you can see here in this picture. I do feel a bit of a twat. But back to today's video. We've got transmission, final drive, belt, rollers, all that to reassemble, bleeding of the two-stroke oil system, there's a twist in there as well, and the front brakes. Unfortunately, it turned out to be more than just brake pads. Let's crack on with this. So now we are in the excellent position where we can get this back together. And I now have the belt and the rollers. You can clearly see here where the old belt was delaminating. I've compared old and new, and they do match. These new ones don't seem to fit, they seem different, so we're going to have to go with the old ones. I mean, there was nothing wrong with them anyway, I was just changing them precautionarily. The rollers are fitted, these all move freely. I can now refit this. Note, I'm not putting any grease in here. I'm going to refit this seal. I know we haven't got any grease in here that we're trying to prevent from escaping, but I'll fit it anyway. And then this little retaining frame. Fit the sleeve. The new parts are ready to be fitted. With all the bolts refitted around the transmission cover, we've now got a functional kickstart, and I want to kick this over a few times and try and get some oil flowing along this line. This is not proving very effective, so the other option is to remove the HT lead so it can't start and operate the starter motor. As I'm still not seeing any oil here at all, I think the best bet is to run this on premix. I think the chap said he put a gallon of fuel in it, so I'm going to work on the premise that there's 6 litres in there to be on the safe side. Each one of these is 20 millilitres, I'm putting in 120. And that's the last one, so that's 120 millilitres in there. I've let the oil out of this pipe, but as you'll see, the moment I reconnect it, more air is drawn in. It's not a snug enough fit, and I need to order a different pipe. So before I fit this, it's meant to be rinsed in petrol and 2-stroke oil. And there's a nice mix in there. That's very neatly placed in there. This new hose has a different internal bore. This is 2.5 millimeters instead of 3 in the case of the clear plastic hose. It's also made of a better substance. It's softer, less likely to harden, and it's quite a nice colour as well. I've got a whole mixture of colours here now, but fortunately it's still translucent. This solves the problem. It's starting to look like a scooter again. The seat helmet bucket is back in, and it's looking good. I need to swap over this number plate. It's so nice to have the electric start working again. To access the bulb for the oil warning, I can remove this little inspection cover here, and I can just about reach in and get to it from behind. I changed this bulb and the light is now working again. Now moving on to brake pads, and I want to expose the reservoir here for the brake fluid. So I need to get this cover off. I'm not entirely sure what I have to remove to achieve this. I'm just kind of feeling my way as I go to work out what's securing it. Ah, here we go. Gosh, there's some ugly handlebars, aren't they? But here is the reservoir. Let's give it a good wipe before I undo it so we don't let any dust or contaminants in there. These look like they've never been disturbed before. I wonder if they have. Now, as brake fluid is very bad for paintwork, naturally we have to be careful. There we go. A little bit murky looking in there, but we'll be changing that anyway. Loosen these two 13mm caliper bolts. It's important to loosen the bolts that secure the caliper to the front shocks, forks, and not these two. The bolt at the top is slightly longer. I think that's because it had a tax disc holder on there before. And here we go, the world's tiniest little pads. A couple of little pins to remove, like that. And the pads can be withdrawn. There are a couple of little shims in here as well. I'm going to give this a little clean up. It's not wet or anything, it's just a bit dirty. I'm going to use some brake cleaner on this. Using a couple of screwdrivers, we can return the pistons I just loosely refitted the caliper so I can get better leverage to release the bleed nipple. See if this helps these pistons to push back in. They're a little bit reluctant, which is slightly concerning. There is a possibility the caliper could be seized. I think we can safely say this caliper is seized. In the end, I had to concede that these caliper pistons were actually seized solid. Removing them was interesting, which was largely done with compressed air, but they're out and I've got a rebuild kit on order. Soaking in here are the two caliper halves because they were quite grubby. They're just soaking in paraffin, which I will rinse away using brake cleaner so it doesn't contaminate the system. Everything here is cleaned and ready to accept the new pistons and seals, and obviously the seal here between the two halves. It is now just a case of waiting for these parts to arrive. Bleeding these systems is a bit of a dark art, but I release as much air gently like this as I can, and then I've been doing this in combination with 3 pumps to build up pressure, then releasing the bleed nipple, and as this lever pulls in I quickly tighten the bleed nipple and repeat. So 3, release the bleed nipple, this will pull right in, tighten the bleed nipple immediately and repeat. The level will go down very quickly because the reservoir is very small. I've now got a bit of a brake lever on it with a bit of clearance here. I think it can be better, but the pads do need to bed in as well. At the very start I used this vacuum device to pull brake fluid down through here because it really wasn't reaching down there. But once I built up a vacuum, I very quickly got this little lot through. Once again taking great care to ensure that the reservoir didn't run dry, which would just introduce more air. Bit of a performance really. I can't get the whole lot on video, it would be very boring, but you just have to be patient and fanny about with it until all the air is expelled. It can also help to tap brake lines to release any trapped air, or maybe even sort of bend them around a bit. I don't know if the camera will pick this up, but you can just see the level at the top of that little window there in the middle. Now time to cover up these ugly bars with the trims. In the end I had to fall back on the old cable tie trick by holding this brake lever in the fully applied position and tying it like this overnight. Air bubbles are able to work their way up through the pipes and up through the master cylinder. And when you cut the cable, you have pressure. A really firm brake lever. That is amazing. It was almost going to here before. Result. I'm just removing the level plug on the final drive. They don't have a drain plug, which is a bit weird. So I'm going to suck this out with the pellet pump. This pellet pump has made many appearances in my videos. I bought this originally when I had a Smart 450. They don't have a sump drain plug, so it was the only way to perform an oil change. But this is incredibly useful whenever you want to draw out fluids from anything really. Well, not anything. I wouldn't use it on my bladder. But you get the idea. I'm not sure how much we're going to get out of here, or if this will even work. I'm not sure because I'm actually hitting an obstacle immediately. Let's think of a plan B. It's very black in there, I'd really like to change that. Now the only other thing would be to almost perform a wheelie. Do you think I'll manage to pull that off, just with the back brake alone and my strength? But you know me, I'm a determined creature. I will always try and find a way. I'm getting really good at making a mess on my driveway. Look at the state of that. I mean, no combustion takes place in there. It's just gear oil. Let's see if I can get any more out. How much I can get out really depends on the strength, because I'm at the front of the bike pushing it back. If I slip off the rear brake lever, I'll go flying, as will the bike, and it will be captured on video. I've got some new oil. I'm not entirely sure how much I got out of there, but I have got as much out as I realistically can. So let's see how much of this we can get in there. Put a little extension hose on here to make it easier. I think that's it now. You can just see it running out of there. And set the tyre pressures. Should be 22 at the front and 26 at the back by my research. The lion of hopelessness. The bike is running incredibly well, but it was very smoky. Once that auto lube kicked in, it was running on that and also the oil from the premix, and it was leaving a trail of fog everywhere I went. So I drained out the premix fuel and I refilled it with fresh E5 petrol. Now, I know the outcome of the MOT because my videos are about a week or two behind the actual event, but no spoilers. All I will say, it was a very interesting day, and it didn't turn out quite how I expected. All will be revealed in next week's video. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.